Samuel Honzek must have heard us all talking because he has 6 points in just 3 preseason games.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess, and thank you so much for hanging out and making the show part of your day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we're going to kind of wrap up the week with the latest happenings from camp, more evaluations and commentary. And of course, we still have questions. There's a little less than a week left of preseason, and we still have a lot on our plates. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day. It has been quite the week for Flames prospects. I think a lot of these players are finding their footing, and that's to be expected. I think you're not going to come into camp like in mid-season form. That is why sports have preseasons. So you have time to kind of shake that dust off, get yourself ready, build chemistry with the team. And then it doesn't automatically happen opening night, but it takes 3 weeks. You're not delaying the start of your season by 3 weeks and wasting those first 3 weeks without having camp, right? But Sam Honzek heard all of us. He got on Twitter. I'm just kidding. I don't know if this is true. But in my mind, he got on Twitter and he saw us all talking and heard people doubting him and said, well, let's give them something to talk about. And like I said, 6 points in 3 preseason games that's great. Obviously, it's just the preseason, but for him to have come in from the Young Star Classic, I can't talk today apparently, and perform, the way that he did, which was very left many of us unimpressed, to starting the preseason and then ramping up to what he's at now. I think, that's impressive. I saw someone say that he might be the Wranglers' best forward this year, and I'm not saying that's like a wrong take or opinion or anything, but that's definitely something to bookmark because there are a lot of talented players within the Flames organization, and it would be great for Honzek to blossom into that. A lot of people are heavily criticized. He faces a lot more scrutiny because he's a first round draft pick when the Flames could have potentially picked someone else. And that's just not the case. They have Sam Honzek, and that's that. You can't blame him for being the draft pick, of course. But it's great to see him kind of settle in. He talked a lot about how he spent the summer with Martin Pospisil training and doing all of this work to take these next steps. So it'll be fun to watch. In the preseason game against Vancouver, Dustin Wolf had the first 2 periods and did well. And then Devin Cooley finished off in the third and overtime. It was an overtime loss. Jake DeBrusk had the overtime winning goal. Preseason, again, not the end of the world for anyone here, and it's not the Stanley Cup, except when the Flames win. And I appreciate seeing the effort that is being put forward on the ice, because you can tell, like, it's really kicking in that, like, this is the moment. You have to seize the moment and make the most of this. One thing that was a cause for concern, immediate concern, was Matt Coronato not being uh, available for the third period, and everyone jumps to conclusions there. And same with Jake Bean. Was it, were they resting? Was it kind of like a load management deal? But then it came out today that, or early Thursday morning rather, that they were taking today Pospisil, Coronado, Bean, and I think one other player just had a maintenance day. So it's probably nothing. I mean, you can keep an eye on it, but I really wouldn't read too much into it. There is no real update on Kevin Ball other than he may skate next week. He has not hit the ice at all for preseason camp, which is a little concerning, because, like, what is the extent of this injury, and can we treat it now versus letting it linger? And of course, Andrew Basha and Gridden were cut and sent back to the CHL. Best of luck to them in their respective seasons. I am really looking forward to this season, and not just like as the Flames, but also the Wranglers and their, like, the prospects, because this, like, there's a bright future here for the Flames, and I think it's so good to start getting a taste of that. And it's a good reminder, because this is going to be a long season. And I know people are saying, well, it hasn't even started yet. You never know what might happen. And you're absolutely right. I don't know what's going to happen. But based on what we have to guess is a roster, it's fair to assume that this isn't going to be a Stanley Cup contending team. And coming up next, we're going to talk about Jakob Pelletier, who is just not quite there. And it is an absolute bummer to see. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break here. And I want to talk to you about Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And if you're going to any games this season, or if you're looking to go to concerts, comedy, theater, any live event, Game Time has you covered. I am so excited that hockey season is here, because that means I get to cross off more arenas on my bucket list, get to just go enjoy a game wherever and whenever I want. And thanks to Game Time Picks, they make that possible by filtering out all the fluff to get me the most incredible deals on great seats, so I don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I really love Game Time because they offer that view from your seat, like panoramic view, and that is so helpful for when you're visiting new arenas or you're going to a show and you want to make sure you get everything. You want to make sure, you're going to a concert, you got a good view of the stage and whatever else might come to mind when you're purchasing concert tickets. Um, Game time picks, the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and more. And like I mentioned, you get that panoramic view from your seat, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube because we're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. This is my fifth-ish season covering the Flames, and along with Dustin Wolf, there has been a player that I've been very excited to watch come up through this system. If you have listened to this podcast at all, you know I love a small, undersized, doubted player, right? So many of us ride or die for Johnny Gaudreau because of like that underdog mentality that he paved the way for players like Jakob Pelletier, right? And I just want nothing more for an underdog than to succeed. And I think that's the same thing with Dustin Wolf, right? He's not your standard 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" goaltender, a big, beefy, lanky guy. Like, no. And Jakob Pelletier, very similar. He's smaller. He has quick hands. He has a nice shot and can score. And he's just overall great vibes, right? Like, you're always rooting for the person as a human being as well as the athlete. And I think that what has been so detrimental to this preseason for Pelletier is missing last year. Last year was supposed to be his year. Last year was supposed to be his Martin Pospisil and Connor Zary breakout, right? It was supposed to be his season. Like, it might as well have been etched in stone. But then he got injured in that final preseason game that required him to have shoulder surgery and miss a majority of the season. And then a week later, Kevin Rooney is out with the same thing, going down in practice oddly against the boards. And they rehab together and they come back at the same time. And granted, they are two very different players, of course, but I think both of them have talked about how having each other help them get through that phase, that the rehab and the recovery. But something about Pelletier's preseason is just, it's bumming me out. He's not finding that same momentum that I expected him to find. I expected him to be hanging out up there with Matt Coronato and even like Sam Morton. I fully expected that, but he is just not playing up to the caliber of these the players he's competing for a roster spot with. And it's a bummer because he's obviously an older prospect at 23. And he did have a bit of time in the 2022-23 season up with the Flames. And that was his season to learn. And he had a very short leash. And he hasn't really been able to find his footing since, and it's a real bummer. I would say that he's likely going to be starting the season in the AHL. I just because of the limited space. within the Flames forward and winger system right now. Like there's too many players and not enough roster spots. And that's when it gets hard because then, he's only on a 1-year contract, right? Could he ask for a trade? Absolutely. Could the Flames explore it? Sure. Would a change of scenery do him some good? Is there an organization that has a clearer path to the NHL for him? I'm not saying that's what I want to happen in the slightest, but I do think he might be one of those players that's kind of on the fringe of exploring other options. Walker Duehr is like at one end of that spectrum. Like the Walker Duehr experiment has ended, ran its course, should have been over around the same time as the Adam Ruzicka experiment. And then you have Pelletier. I just feel like Pelt is he's not able to get his footing underneath him, and I don't know what it is. And it's frustrating because you know that he can play at a much better level. You know that, is it a case of him just having, a little rust on him and just kind of taking time to, shake it off and things like that? Or are these kids that are coming up really gunning for his job because they're that much better? And that's just something we're going to have to see play out. And I talked a lot about it on yesterday's episode with JJ from the win column, but like there are too many players and there aren't enough roster spots. So you have to sacrifice either, like an Andrei Kuzmenko and you trade him and you're able to bring up a player like Matt Coronato and then make some more adjustments at the deadline, maybe move Anthony Mantha and you have an opportunity for some of these other guys, but it stinks. It's not fun to talk about, especially when it's a player that you really like. There are certain players where you're like, yeah, this is never going to work in the organization. Goodbye and good luck. But when it's like a genuinely good person that has the potential to play up with these NHL level guys, it's a bummer. And coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show with some more questions that we have yet to have answers to because we still need some answers and have plenty of questions. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break here and we will be right back after this. You have heard us talk all about FanDuel, and I'm here to tell you more. NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. If you are into placing bets, why not go place some NHL futures? Are the New Jersey Devils going to win the Stanley Cup, or is it going to be the Florida Panthers again? Who knows? And maybe bet some first overall pick, maybe the Flames. Is that them? And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. You can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. I'm always happy to engage in conversation with y'all because most of you are very respectful, and I love just picking the brains of other people because they can offer new insight, and I think that's why it's so important to listen to or consume different forms of media from within like your market. Like I am a big, fan of Julian McKenzie. So like I'll always go to his work. Salim Valji, same thing. Eric Francis has been on the beat a very long time, so I do read his things. And of course, you have guys like Pat Steinberg, who's on the radio. You have Wes Gilbertson, who is just a fantastic writer. And there's plenty of people out there to get different perspectives from. And I think that's great. And obviously, I have to plug the Win column because the writing they do over there is great. It's informative, easy to digest, and really helps put things into perspective. But one thing we're all kind of looking for more clarity on is Connor Zary. Eric Francis did report today, or Thursday rather, that Ryan Huska does want to try Zary at center before the preseason ends, as well as Sharon Govich. I feel like right now, if you've ever been to the eye doctor, you'll know this comparison. But in terms of him being like a center versus a winger, it's like when they do like is this lens better or two? One or two? And it's like, there like a very clear difference right now, or are you gonna pop in number 3 in like 5 minutes and like it's magically better? When will there be clarity? And do we think that there is a future of Zary at center? Is he the potential number 1 center for the organization in years to come? If we don't try, we will never find out. And someone did mention on Twitter that, it is a contract year for him. Playing along Coleman and Backlund would be, an honor. And I think that's great, of course. And that probably would do him some good. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean you can't put him at center. You can do multiple things, multiple variations. And I think that that's what the Flames just need to do. They need to try out any combination, any variation to see what sticks, because you never know if you don't try. And the thing with goaltending, okay, this is another thing that there is like no clarity on, because it very much feels like it could go any way. You have a feeling Dustin Wolf's going to start the season in the NHL. But are they going to lose Cooley or, Vladar on waivers? Vladar, I truly thought that they were going to trade Vladar last season. Did not happen. But it's complicated. And Devin Cooley is playing so well. And he's so likable and easy to, very easy to root for. And I feel like he does have a lot to offer. However, him and Wolf do not have enough experience to carry this team through an 82-game season. That is absolutely unrealistic. None of these goaltenders have the experience to carry this team through an 82-game season. You do not have a Jacob Markstrom in net. You don't have Linus Ullmark. You don't have a goaltender that is well-seasoned and has been around the block a time or 2 or 3 that can play 45, 50, maybe 60 games. For your backup to kind of just get light work in comparison. So what are they going to do? Because I still don't feel like the answer is here. I don't. And there are just so many options and possibilities that you can drive yourself crazy and put yourself in a situation where it's like, okay, you're going to do this and this, and you'll convince yourself and why it makes the most sense. And then you'll start thinking of why this other combination makes the most sense. And we're just going to have to wait, because, I really think it's going to be Vladar and Wolf. But Logan, I keep calling him Logan Cooley. I'm so sorry. Devin Cooley is putting up a fight. He's not going down quietly. And I think that's fun. He is, like we've talked about before, a great media interview. And, he talks about taking it seriously, but not like making himself sick over it. He's learned to, like he said before, none of this really matters. Allowing one goal is not the end of the world. You just have to get back into it and stop the next one. And I think that's a really good way to look at it because, we hear about goalies just like being in their own head and, kind of having issues tracking the puck after a few times and, a few issues. And I don't know. I think Devin Cooley offers something to this team in some capacity, but I do think he is going to be an AHL goaltender for most of the season. And with Jake Bean potentially out as well as Kevin Ball, does that mean we get to see Jeremy Poirier? Does that mean that it is his time? Last season, he suffered an injury that was very bad. And he didn't think he was ever going to play hockey again. And it is so great to see him having a great camp and fighting for a potential roster spot, to show himself and be like, here you go. This is what you might get or this is what you'll get when you call me up in December when someone's out with the flu, and he wants that spot. Deserved. He has been great to watch. Premier left shot defenseman. Flames don't have any of that. What they just need to trade people in order to open up these log jams, but it's not that easy. It's so much easier said than done. And same thing with wingers. There are so many young players you want to integrate into this lineup, but you just can't. There's not enough spots. And who is going to be one of those players? Because, you saw Mangiapane move, but that didn't really open anything up because you just shuffled things around a little bit. There wasn't like a spot, say, for even Coronato. It was, maybe. And then some of the projected lines had Walker Dewar over Coronato. And I don't know if we are watching the same hockey. I know there isn't. Oh no, that's Connor Dewar. But I don't think we're watching the same games. But who's going to be on the move? I hope everyone stays healthy ahead of the start of the season. This is a very competitive and fun time of year, and I hope everyone is enjoying themselves because at the end of the day, this is hockey. It is all entertainment, and we just hope everyone has fun and the Flames win or lose, depending on which way you're hoping this team goes. But that'll do it for me today on this Friday edition of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the nice weather while you can. If you're in the path of the hurricane, please stay safe. I don't know why you're listening to this podcast if you are in the middle of a natural disaster. Please be safe, though. Yes. And I'll be back on Monday, and there is a bonus episode going out on Monday as well. So you'll want to stick around for that. And until then, stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay cool, stay hydrated, and remember to be kind.